Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jeannie Borum, and I am part of the Signworld Corporate team, and it's a pleasure to host our session today. For our time together, we're going to have an agenda where our owners will be doing an introduction of themselves and their business and sharing a little bit about each of them. And then we're going to go in a round robin format where each of you, as our participant guests, will have an opportunity to ask a single question. And each of our owners will give you their own individual responses. So you'll have multiple perspectives that you'll hear back. We'll do it in a round robin format where we'll ask each of you to ask a single question. And then as time permits, we'll be able to hopefully go back around at least one more time. We'll just see, we got a pretty significant size group here today. So we'll see how far we get through. But Tim, Brent, and Brian, as the first three to join, you'll be the first three to ask your questions. So if you can start thinking now of what that might be, that would be great. But before we get started with questions, we'd like to ask our panel of owners to introduce themselves. So Hamid, can you go ahead and get started with that?
Yeah, I think I have a list of 8 questions that Sheree sent me. So I'm going down the list.
Okay.
The name of my business is Mercury Signs. We are located in a city called Apex, which is in the Triangle area, Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill. I'm right in the middle of the Triangle. We started on July 4th weekend 2 years ago. So we had just finished 2 years. How large is my facility? It's about 2,400 square feet of flex property. And 75% or 80% is workspace and the rest is office space. And it's fully air conditioned with a full garage door. I have 4 employees. And I assume they're looking for 2021 sales projection. We have done about $480,000 in the first 6 months, and I think we're going to do about 1.1 million this year. And our biggest customer, biggest project, we are actually in the middle of it. It's a pharmaceutical company that has moved from San Francisco to Sanford, North Carolina. We're building the factory signs. It's about $133,000. And I am a recovering Silicon Valley technologist. And I used to do artificial intelligence in the Bay Area. And now I'm doing science. So I just stepped up.
Wonderful. Thank you, Hamid. We appreciate that. Jim, Science of Significance. Can you go ahead and give us an introduction to you and your business?
Yeah, sure can. Thank you. So I'm Jim Tardif. My company's Signs of Significance. We're located in Roswell, Georgia, which is a northern suburb of Atlanta. We started, I guess I signed my contract with Signworld in July of 2015. We opened our doors in our first location in November of 2015. We started in a space that was 2,500 square feet. We, a month ago, moved to our new location. We're still in Roswell, but we're now in 7,200 square feet. Within that space, we've got a reception area and some offices. The rest is production area. About half of that is in a drop ceiling air-conditioned space. The rest of the production area is in warehouse space. We've got 2 full bays for bringing vehicles in to do wraps. We just bought a new CNC router. So we've got a Colex CNC router with a 10.5 by 5.5 foot bed, which is going to open up some wholesale opportunities for us and already has. I have 4 employees right now. This year we will do about $500,000. And my past employment, I spent 30 years mostly in sales and marketing with General Electric. I left GE, did a global sales job for a company out of Atlanta called N3. And like I said, about 6 years ago, my son and I started Signs of Significance.
Wonderful. Thanks for sharing and congrats on the move. That's quite a big accomplishment.
Yeah.
Fantastic. We'll go next to ever smiling Mr. Frank Murch. Frank, can you go ahead and introduce yourself? Frank, you're on mute.
I was reaching my peak as an orator there, right there. The name of my business is Signs for San Diego. I'm located in northern San Diego, actually Oceanside, which is San Diego County. I've been in business for 8 years. I have 5,600 square feet, something like that. 9 employees at the moment. Sales projections about $1.5 million. Maybe I'm a little low on that, and maybe it's going to be bigger. I don't know. Our biggest customer, our biggest project, $500,000 with a credit union where we redid 14 branches. And background, I was an engineer for 30 years in semiconductor.
Wonderful, thank you. And Jack Werner.
Morning, everybody. I'm Jack Werner. I joined Signworld back in 1995 as an operation. Ran that successfully for 10 years, then sold it to join Ken at the corporate office to learn his end of the business, finished buying him out in 2014, 6.5 years ago. So when I answer questions today, if it goes to my experience running a sign company, I'll answer from that perspective. If it goes more to training and policy, I'll answer from that perspective. I started in 1,100 square feet, ended up in 5,000 square feet. Started with 1 employee, ended up with a staff of 11, doing about 1.3 million in revenue.
Perfect, thank you. And besides our panel of owners, we're also privileged to have our founder, Ken Kint, to join us and provide his perspectives and commentary. Ken, can you introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. Got a nice big crowd today. I started Signworld 33 years ago in Honolulu, Hawaii. I still reside here in Hawaii. I'm still in contact with four of my customers that, as Frank will point out and the others, this is very much a relationship business. We've grown now to about 362 locations and no rules and no royalties. Go ahead, Jeannie.
Perfect, thank you. And our person who keeps us all together, Sheree, is our communications coordinator at the corporate office. She makes sure we're all in line all the time. We really appreciate her. She's also going to help us from the technology perspective. So thank you all for being here. It is now time to turn it over to our participants. So as we said previously, we're going to give you each an opportunity to ask a single question. Each of our owners will provide you a response to that question, and we will just rotate through the group. I did see Millie and Richard, you joined us as well, so we'll make sure we get to you. So just know that your attendance has been noted and appreciate you being here. So with that said, let's start with Tim from Fort Lauderdale. What's your first question for our owners today?
Yes, maybe just two-part question. One, what would be the expectation for a new owner in terms of annual revenues in the first 12 months? And then part two is, what could we potentially expect or should expect for an EBITDA number?
Okay, great question. Let's go ahead and start with Frank Murch in San Diego.
He's muted.
Frank, you're still muted. There you
I
are.
keep going there. I try and, okay. So I think the first $100,000 in sales are really about doing a bunch of different things to find your niche. And as quickly as you can get through that, the better off you are. And so I don't really think you make a lot of money on that first $100,000, but it helps you to find out what you're good at and what you like and what you're not good at and what you don't like. And then after that, I would assume that you could make 10% after everything's paid off easily. But it depends, because you have a fixed cost in your rental and some other things like employees are basically a fixed cost. You're going to pay them for 40 hours. And then after that, if you can get the sales up within that fixed cost, then you can make a lot more money than 10%. But I'd say first year, first $100,000 are about learning what you really want to do.
Thanks, Frank. Jim?
Yeah, I would go along with what Frank said. I think we were at 150,000 at the end of the first year. It's tough to make a lot of profit when you're covering all of your fixed costs and your sales are under 200,000. But I would agree. Until you find your niche, you want to be taking every opportunity you can and asking everybody you can for their business.
Thank you. Hamid?
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. I was just looking up my numbers, and I think in my first 12 months, I crossed $112,000 or something like that. And I think I lost about $80,000 that year. But I turned cash flow positive in my 16th month, just because of one project. So my guess is that you should be ready to have at least anywhere from $50,000 to $70,000 of float, so that you can survive the first few months. And then you will know, and you'll get a good confidence of where you're going.
Perfect. Thank you, Hamid. Jack?
You know, I did 430 my first year. Some of us have a faster ramp up and then we plateau out. Some are a little bit slower starting. So it's kind of, you really need to talk to a number of Signworld owners and figure out how you're going to fare in that. You're starting a manufacturing business from scratch, so it's not a get rich quick scheme. But we find that over a couple of years, as the volume grows, the margins expand out. Most Signworld owners are going to run between a 20 and a 30% net. And you're also building equity for resale value. So you add those components together, and over a couple of years, you're able to make up for what you didn't make in the first year. Ken, do you have some thoughts?
Our survey results show that on average over 33 years, new Signworld owners do about 250,000 gross sales the first year. The profit on that obviously is going to be lower than the normal 25%. But there are a good number of owners that did have positive cash flow net profit in the first year. Go ahead, Jeannie.
Perfect. We'll go to our next question from Brent in Dallas. Go ahead and go off mute and ask your question, please.
Hello, everybody. This is Brent, actually just north of Houston. So we'll get that down. But with all the, I guess, questions surrounding COVID and the retail environment and commercial office space environment kind of in flux right now, how do you guys see COVID affecting your long-term futures and business prospects with, you know, retail shutting down for a large portion of that, or maybe not even coming back?
Great question. Hamid, we'll start with you first. How did you see COVID impact your business before, today, and going forward?
Well, you know, I really didn't have much of a history before COVID. I mean, you know, in fact, I didn't qualify for any of the giveaways from the government because my numbers always look better during COVID than before COVID, so which is a good problem. And I think that this business is so fragmented and so big. You know, when I started here, I did some research, and there were 93 sign companies in Raleigh, Durham, and Chapel Hill. 43 of them had only one employee. And then only 4 of them were doing more than $2 million. So there is so much market share to gain if you do the right thing for your customer that I don't see being too worried about macro issues, because you can just pick up a lot of business from people who are not doing a very good job around you. So I don't let that bother me at this time.
Thank you, Hamid. Jim, how do you see COVID impacting your business?
To be honest with you, COVID has actually helped our business. You know, from a Georgia/Atlanta perspective, you know, our governor, like everywhere, we shut down immediately, right? As soon as COVID hit, I furloughed my entire team, but I didn't shut down the business. I kept coming to work every day. It was important for me that my customers knew that Signs of Significance was open, especially for the essential businesses like restaurants that needed signage. We were here to help them. Once Governor Kemp opened the state back up, we've been going faster than we had before COVID. So that's, I think, a little bit of a tribute to just the energy in the economy, as well as the government throwing money out. We did qualify for some of those aids, and we did take advantage of those. We were able to get ourselves a SBA loan that we might not have been able to get prior. So that's allowed us to reinvest in the business, and we're growing. We came out of COVID in a better position than we were going in, and we're continuing to grow.
Thank you, Jim. Frank, how about you? How did you see COVID impact your business?
Well, I think there's a couple things. 2020 was a down year for sure, but 2021 has been up. And really 2020 hit bottom in April or May, I'd say April. And from then, every month has been a little bit better. The retail space, you're mentioning retail space. There were a lot of restaurants that went out of business, and there was a lot of retail space that's open. Every one of those open units needs a sign, because whether the property owner lowers the rent or not, they're going to fill those spaces because they need that rent money or that lease money to make, their own lease and own mortgage payments. And so our own loan payments. So right now there's a huge number of open units. All of them are going to get filled up. Every one of them is going to get a sign on it. In the meantime, there were a lot of sign companies that folded for one reason or another, or they reduced their abilities. Right now, we don't have a sales problem. We have a problem to keep up because there aren't enough sign companies to meet the demand that's out there. And, lead times are lengthening and prices are going up, not down. So right now is a perfect time to get into the sign business, because right now, it's supply limited and everybody wants a sign. It's not hard to sell signs right now. It was hard in April 2020. I don't think you could sell anything in April 2020. But now it's not a problem. We're in a growth spurt.
Great, thank you, Frank. Jack?
Well, some retail has been impacted. In many cases, as Frank said, they're using even more signs to draw people in. But we've got Signworld owners doing Amazon warehouses. We've got Signworld owners that are doing more and more fleet graphics because we're becoming more of a mobile society. The sign industry is growing. It's not hurt at all by COVID in the long run.
Wonderful, thank you. We'll go next to Brian from Dallas. My apologies for having you two messed up. Your neighbors there in the state of Texas.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, I wanted to find out what you would say you like best about the business, and on the flip side of that, well, what do you dislike about the business?
Love this question. Pretty consistent when we hear from time to time. We'll go to Frank first. Frank, what do you love best, and what do you like least about your business?
Well, you're your own boss, and you can do what you want. There's zero political arguments when you're in charge of your own future, and I love that. I think that's fantastic. And also, we can do what we see fit, which is very different than being an employee. As far as the things that are difficult, permitting. Permitting is difficult right now, and there are from time to time some other little problems, of employee problems or what have you. But I would say permitting is somewhat difficult because they went out for COVID, and permits have always been problematic because the government does things on their own time schedule, not on yours.
That's right. Thank you, Frank. Jim, what do you love? What do you love the most, and what do you like least about your business and being a business owner?
Yeah, certainly owning the business and being able to make all the decisions has been great. Owning the business and having to make all the decisions is not so great sometimes, but that comes with it comes with those responsibilities. Anyways, what I really like about the business, when I was with GE, global corporation, I'm talking to people and doing business around the world. Now we're a small business in Roswell. North Atlanta is our marketplace, and just becoming a greater part of that community, being connected into that community has been probably the biggest piece for me. I take that back. The biggest piece for me is I started the business with my son. So being able to come to work today and every day with my son and watch him develop into the business person he's developed has probably been the best part of it for me.
That's fantastic.
I think the bad part is, you know, you've got to wear all the hats every day, and there's some parts of business that aren't as much fun as the selling part, but you know, it's not that big of a deal for me. We get through it.
Okay. Hamid, what do you like the most and what do you like the least about your business?
You know, I would say that, you know, I have all these degrees that I had an engineering background, a master's, and then an MBA from a top 10 business school. And I worked for corporate America, and I never used all those skills in one job. But now I get to use all those skills for the first time. The only guy who actually needs an MBA is a CEO, because that's what they teach you how to be one. So, you know, G did not make me CEO because I had to quit in 4 weeks. So this was my way to become the head of my own business. So that's what I like the best, because you own your problems and you own your victories and you own your losses. And you don't have anybody to complain about. And the other thing I like best about it is that I only hire people who have no college degrees. And so I get to make them $50,000 to $60,000. I couldn't do that in Silicon Valley in my dreams. So every employee of mine is going to be in upper middle class, making that kind of money. You cannot do that in California. So that's, you know, that's really rewarding for me. And I love that part of my job. And the thing I hate most is I don't get to travel the way I used to travel. You know, I had 2 million miles on my American Airlines, and I have not flown in like 18 months. So I miss that part.
I don't think many of us have flown in the last 18 months, but I can understand. Those miles are nice. Jack, how about you? When you owned a business, what did you like the most and what did you not like the most?
I enjoyed the idea that every project was unique and custom. You got to recreate the wheel a bit every day. It didn't get boring. And then the ability to drive down the street and say, that one's mine and that one's mine and that one's mine. You're helping the community. You're involved in the community. Running a business your own way, because there's no rules. There's no restrictions on how you do it. The guidance is there, but none of the control.
Go ahead, Ken.
When you compare Signworld, a manufacturing business, to all the other businesses that you're looking at, that your coach, consultant, franchise consultant might be having you look at, what I like the most is the very few number of employees compared to the amount of money that you can make, the very few number of customers that you have compared to the amount of money that you make. So that's the beauty of a manufacturing business. That's the beauty of Signworld. That's what I like the most, is you don't have so many employee problems to take care of. You don't have so many customer problems to take care of, where 80% of your money is most likely going to come from your top 20 customers. And to make $200,000 a year personal income, you only need, our benchmark is maybe 5 employees. That's it. It's pretty good all in one building. What I like the least, paying taxes. But I guess that's a good thing. Go ahead, Jeannie.
Absolutely. Perfect. John from Michigan, go ahead and go off mute and ask your question.
Yeah, I gotta say, Hamid has me thinking about a second question already, but I'm gonna stick with my first one, and it's about due diligence in your market, surveying to make sure that there's actually a need. And I get what Frank is saying about the current climate, but I have to think that every market is different. And as much as there is a market out there dying for a sign shop, there is the inverse, a market out there that is just absolutely flooded. So how do I determine if my market has enough runway for me to collect those 20 customers? And I guess assuming that I'm going to be the guy that is the customer service whiz, and I'm going to go out and be everybody's best friend and business partner. Again, how do I determine my market's ready?
Great question. Hamid, how did you evaluate your market? Do you feel there's too much competition? How are you being successful?
You know, there's a company that owes me a lot of money. It's called Google. And so I use Google to find out how many sales sign companies are in my zip code. It's very easy to do. And so I did that, and I came up with that results of 93 companies in my market. And then I started researching each of those companies, and I could figure out how many employees they had or what kind of website they had. And I could tell there were 3 or 4 that were really dominant. And made a couple of calls and figured out what their revenue structure was. And then I realized, well, who's running those companies? And I looked at their skill level and I says, can I do better than those guys? So that's one way to look at your competition. That's what I did. The second thing is, rising, you want to, I guess I spent so much time in California, so I will use this surfing thing. You want to catch the wave. You don't want to go against the wave. So don't go to, Paradise, California. We don't make a sign there. Nobody's moving there. It's all burnt out. Right? Go to Austin, Texas, or go to Raleigh, North Carolina, or go to Denver, right? Don't go to Podunk, some other state, because you can easily tell that from any results you can buy from Business Week or something like that. What you need is a business growth. What is a business growth formation? One easy statistic to find out from your state is what is the business formation growth by zip code? And you'll see if that's the right market for you.
Great suggestion, Hamid. Thank you. Jim, how do you think the competition is in your market? How did you feel comfortable starting? What's your thoughts today?
Yeah, the competition in Atlanta is pretty heavy. We've got a lot of Signworld shops in Atlanta. I think it's, there are also many other sign shops. I don't know what the number is. My feeling is, and Jack helped me understand this very early on in my process, you can do the due diligence around who the competition is by making some phone calls and finding out what kind of response time they have. What I found is the response time in general in the sign industry is very poor. So we put that at the top of our list for things that we were going to try to impress our customers with. And quite frankly, that's been gold for us. I remember one of the first times I went to a networking meeting, talked about signs, somebody came up to me and said, I've called 3 or 4 sign companies, none of them will get back to me. I've had appointments, they stand me up for appointments. So by setting yourself above in those types of metrics, setting yourself above the competition, it doesn't matter how many other sign shops are out there. You'll win the business. And we're about to be announced as the best sign shop in North Atlanta for the 2nd year in a row. And it's because we're out and we take care of our customers.
Well, congratulations, that's fantastic. Frank, how about you? You're in a competitive market. How did you evaluate that market and the competition, and how do you feel you stand today?
I only have a couple of competitors. There's about 325, I could check the number, sign companies in the larger San Diego metro area, but quite honestly, I don't compete with them. I think that it's highly fragmented. The market's highly fragmented. I have things that I like to do, mostly building signs, and there isn't that much competition in that. And what I think that Signworld is doing is that they'll count the number of businesses that are active within a geographic area that you have. And I think that that will generally give you enough business to get going. You're not limited to that geographic area. And I'm selling signs in Louisiana and also in Washington State and some in Canada, but that geographic area has enough in it that you can make that your foundation. I wouldn't worry about that so much because, if it's going to be in Laramie, Wyoming, you're going to have a big area, or you're not going to find that that's a viable place. Signworld's not trying to give you a location that's going to, not be viable. So in many ways, you have guys that have 30 or 40 years of experience trying to make sure that you're not in a situation where there's no viability. It's not to their best interest. It's not to yours. It's just not going to happen.
Perfect. Thank you, Frank. Jack?
You're going to find that if you've ever had to hire a contractor, did they show up for the appointment on time? Did they get the quote back to you quickly? Then they deliver the project on schedule, on budget. That's our competition. Most sign companies are not owned by business people, they're owned by former sign makers who were used to their boss giving them one job at a time, and now they're trying to juggle 20, 50, 100 projects. Our biggest advantage is that the market is crowded with inept performers. If you do your job, the limit of the business is your bandwidth to catch up, get to more.
Thank you, Jack. Let's go to John from Atlanta. John, can you go off mute and ask your question? Bottom left of your screen. There you go.
Okay, yeah, I got it. That's my favorite button. So, Jeannie, I know that I've asked this question at the other webinar we did as well. But Hamid, Jim, and Frank, I would like you to talk about your first hire. What strengths were you looking for? What attributes were you looking for? And how did it all work out for you? That to me is one of the scariest things about starting a new business, especially from someone, I'm in a hotel, I have a hotel background and no experience in the sign making world, which I know most of us didn't when we started. And by the way, Jim, I'm looking forward to seeing you tomorrow. So if you all could address the first hire and how you went about finding the right person.
Perfect. First hire. Let's start with Jim. How did you find your first person? What were you looking for?
Yeah, so Signworld does a good job of helping put together a job description for that first hire. They also help in the interview process. So I drafted the job description. I posted it out in several different areas. Talked to people over the phone just briefly, decided who I wanted to have in-person meetings with, and then met with a couple of those, filtered it down to one person in particular. What I was looking for from my perspective, not knowing much more about signs than I needed to stop at a stop sign at the time, I was looking for integrity, work ethics, a personality that I felt I could get along with. And then I turned them over to the Signworld people to do the interviewing on the skill sets that we had identified as being requirements for that person. They gave me a thumbs up and we hired him, and he still works for me today, and he's been a big part of our success.
Great.
Perfect. Thank you. Frank, how about you? How'd you find your first hire? What were you looking for?
I think it was a Craigslist hire, but first hire for strengths, you're looking for design, manufacturing, and install. And in the beginning, that's largely in vinyl. And you don't know as much as the hire. So in a way, they're teaching you some, or you're learning from them. And I think as you go along, you may outgrow them, or they may grow with you. So I think if you hire for personality and you have those basic skills and a little bit of design, a little bit of manufacturing, and a little bit of install, you'll be fine. And as you grow, you'll be more confident as to the second hire or third hire. And that person is really important on day one, but a couple of years down the road, they'll probably be just one of many.
Thank you, Frank. Hamid, how'd you find your first hire? What were you looking for? Hamid, you're on mute still.
I think Jim pretty much said what I was going to say. I looked at, I spent a lot of time looking for people, and I rejected a couple of people before we landed on the person I wanted. And either I rejected them or Jack and his team rejected them because they didn't have the skills. So I think you have to be patient, but also you have to realize you're not going to marry them. This is just dating. So, if you get the wrong person, so what? You might get some disease, but that's it.
Let's hope not, but there you go. Jack, how about you? How'd you find your first hire?
There's a workforce out there that's made this a career. So there's a lot of help in helping you find them. You're going to interview them for culture. We're going to interview them for talent. Other Signworlds will help you interview. You can pay for a day's wages, have them go work in another location to see if they actually perform on, and you go from there. So it's all a doable process. I did an interview on Monday with a sign maker that has 10 years of experience. They're out there.
Perfect. Thank you. James from San Jose, California. Can you go off mute and ask your question, please?
Yeah. Hi. So unfortunately, that wasn't my question. That was just asked. Going along with that, though, I know the sign business is kind of varied. So was there a difference? Was a specific time when you needed to add like vehicles and trucks to install signs, or at one point did you decide to make that route, or does that go in hand with your what you figure your core business to be?
Great question. So let's start with Jim. Did you invest anything beyond your original equipment package at this point in time? And if so, what have you invested in and why?
So the first investment I made was one of the other Signworld shops that was a mentor to me when we were first going through, starting up. Came to me about a year into it, and he decided he was going to retire. We ended up buying the assets of his business. Right, so that was my first investment. We bought out another sign shop. With that came a pickup truck, and it was great to have. I didn't have a pickup truck, to address the truck question in particular. I didn't have a pickup truck. It was an old beater kind of a thing, and we used it until it died. And then I found out how much I was paying for insurance for an old pickup truck, and it makes more sense to me to run down the street and grab a U-Haul whenever I need a truck. There are a lot of times where it'd be great to have one, but I don't miss it, especially from a financial perspective at this point. Other than that, when we moved, I mentioned earlier, we invested in a CNC router. I've got a couple of other pieces of equipment like a drill press, a table saw, just some things that make the manufacturing process a little bit easier. But that CNC router has probably been our biggest investment.
Perfect, thank you. Hamid, have you invested in any additional equipment since you first started? And if so, what and why?
So I'm still very much with the same package that I started with. And at the moment, I would rather invest in real estate and buy my own place than buy equipment, because the market in Raleigh is just crazy. I have a feeling that my business will never appreciate at the rate at which the real estate is appreciating over here. So for me, it's really a business decision. And I have not had any trouble finding outsourcing that has constrained me. But I do agree with Jim. I had a truck. Unfortunately, my sign maker totaled it. Fortunately, he was safe. And now we don't have a truck, and I feel liberated.
Okay,
and I don't think I want to buy one.
Very good. Frank, I've seen your facility. I know you've invested in additional equipment. Tell them a little bit about your story and what you've invested in and why.
Sure. It's a dynamic industry, and there's always people leaving and coming in. There's divorces and retirements, and people just move on. And what I've done is I made a list of the equipment that I wanted, and I just watched for it till it came up, in some sort of auction or sale or something. And I bought, as cheaply as I could. And so right now I have a CNC machine, a paint booth, a channel letter bender, a number of metalworking tools, welders, a crane, and 2 bucket trucks. So I have a lot of equipment.
Very good. Jack?
It's a business decision several years in where you figure out what direction you want to go. Some sign rollers want to keep it lean and outsource the unusual things, and others want to bring it in deep. I'm going to 2 things here. One, we've got a number of people asking questions yet. So Signworld Owners, we can shorten the answers. We can get through them all. Otherwise, we're going to be here all day. Second of all, I'm going to start several slideshows that are going to go on in the background. There's no audio to them, so we'll continue conversations. The first one shows some of the facilities inside and out, so you can see what they look like. The second slideshow shows what is a sign, not only what we can make with the original equipment, but what we can outsource. And the third part of that slideshow is showing just some unusual products, things you wouldn't even think of as a sign. Then the last slideshow is just showing some of our wall of fame, some of the bigger projects Signworld Owners have done. So Gene, go ahead and continue with questions.
Perfect. And hopefully those that were maybe might not get to, you're hearing some of your questions being asked as James just mentioned a moment ago. Let's go to Arpita next in Tampa. Can you go off mute and ask your question, please?
Hi everyone. I have a question about like marketing and the supply. Let's say how, like, do we have to do marketing for our business, or you guys gonna do the marketing for us? And for needed of supply, how it works? Like, do we have to get it from you, or you guys have some vendors which they provide all the materials and all? I don't know anything about it yet.
Perfect. So Jim, let's start with you. How did you set up your marketing? What support did you get from Signworld to do that? We'll start with the marketing question first. Jim?
Yeah, so I think right out of the gate, if you're expecting Signworld to do anything for you, technically from a business perspective, that's not how the agreement's set up. Signworld is very, very supportive. They do a lot of training, but this is your business and you make all the rules and all the decisions for yourself. So we have, part of our business plan, we've got money allocated for marketing. We look at how we're going to spend that every year. I personally do a lot of networking, and we do sponsorships through those networking organizations from a marketing perspective, as well as our website. Those are our major marketing buckets. As far as supplies, Signworld will introduce you to a lot of great vendors. Some of them will give you a discount because you're a Signworld supplier, but you're going to get to meet a lot of people in your particular marketplaces that can help you out from a supplies and services perspective.
Thank you, Jim. Frank, how did you set up your marketing? What support did you get from Signworld, and same thing with your suppliers?
Well, I don't do a tremendous amount of marketing now because it's a relationship business, and most of my customers either are repeat customers or they're referral customers. But in the beginning, I think it's really important to put up a website. The websites don't typically work for a period of months, so the quicker you get it up, the better off you are. Once the website starts to kick in, that'll give you some leads. And then the other thing, people buy from people, and so if you can network BNI or the chamber or wherever, networking means that your face is out there and people know you, and you may be the only sign company they know, and that's kind of where you start. And then you can get more complex than that, but website and networking is where it's at for the first year or two, and then I would say referral after that.
And for supplies?
I missed that part of the question. That well, I'm the supplier for a lot of other sign companies. I do a lot of wholesale work. I think that you can find a wholesaler to do pretty much anything, and there are different niches there. So you could be strictly a broker if you wanted to be and not make anything. I went the other way. I pretty much make everything we sell, but you could go the other way as well. It's not hard to find sources for different kinds of signs.
Thank you. Hamid, how about you? How did you set up your marketing? What support did you have from Signworld? And then same thing with your supplier base.
I think, we obviously were in COVID, so the networking was very limited. And also I was moving back to North Carolina from spending 2 decades in California. So I didn't have much of a network here. So I spent a lot of money on website and AdWords, Google AdWords, and all those sort of things. Hired a marketing agency to take care of that, and that got us started. And one of the things I track very closely is what is the percentage of my repeat customers. So we started at 0%, of course, we had no customers, and now we are up to about 42%. So 42% of my business last quarter was from repeat customers in dollar amount. And one day when I get to 75% repeat, then I will kick my website guy out. That's my goal. And then as far as suppliers, I think once you establish yourself in the local market, suppliers will come and find you because they know they want to sell to you. But but Signworld is perfect. I mean, they gave us a list of about 45 suppliers all over the country, and we had no trouble. And it's also, I don't know if people have talked to you all about the board that is very active on Signworld site, where you can write any question, and my mentor is Frank Murch. He would answer a question and tell me how stupid I was for asking that question, but he would give me a good answer in the process, and that's how you kind of get going.
Perfect. Jack?
There's a 2-year sales and marketing training program that you're going to meet with every week with a coach, Ken or myself, and about 20 fellow Signworld owners, learning how to market the business. The internet's going to drive a lot of that business as you get going. We have the supply network there for you, but if you want to buy out of the network, you're free to do it. There are no restrictions.
Very good. Thank you. Brett from St. Augustine, Florida.
Yeah, thank you. I have 2 questions. They're pretty much related, I think, for some of the people who have been in the corporate world for a while. But I'm just curious to know what type of CRM system the various operations are using, and then also incorporated with that, I would imagine that some of the larger projects where you can make more revenue are a bidding process, but is that the case, even though this is a relationship business? Or can you just give me an idea of, for the larger projects that you've won, what the process was like to win the business?
Okay, very good. I'll start with Hamid, who's one of our technology expert owners that we have. Hamid, what are you using for CRM today?
Yeah, I only use technology that doesn't cost me any money, because I don't think they deserve any of my money anymore. So we all use the free version of Trello, and that is as good as Salesforce.com as far as the sign company goes. And I'm waiting for the day when I need to buy a premium version, so I haven't reached that point yet. So for the last 2 years, our CRM as well as our project management software is Trello. What was the second question?
Have you bid on a big project? And if so, what was that process?
Yeah, well, we tried to get registered on some of those bidding websites where you get called on for, and then we quickly realized that, at least in my area in the Southeast, that's really a hard way to win business. So until I can meet the general contractor and have lunch with him, I have made a decision never to bid on anything until I know who's going to make the decision and they meet with me. If they're not willing to meet with me, I'm not willing to read their RFP.
Okay, very good. Jim, what are you using today for CRM? And we'll go to the bid question after that.
We use ShopFox for our CRM. We're very happy with that. As far as bidding questions, I do not bid on projects. That's not to say when I talk to a client that they don't go out and get another price, but for big construction type projects, we have not entered into that vertical, at least as of yet.
I think Jeannie might be frozen, so thanks, Jim. Let's go to Frank.
CRM, we use ShopFox. ShopFox is kind of the Bible. We also use Trello. ShopFox doesn't do everything. Trello kind of does what ShopFox doesn't. The bidding process, we've done a lot of bids. People buy from people, so the idea is you bid, but you need to maintain contact with the general contractor and develop a relationship with the general contractor. A lot of times there's, they'll call you up and they'll say, you're the second from the bottom, you need to be here, or, here's the price you need to be at, because they're favoring the people that they know. We use Microsoft Office, and we also use Gmail with Google Suite. So to share files that way, Google Meet, a bunch of stuff like that. That's basically the IT side of it, minus the design side of it. Sheree, you're going to be the MC. I would like to take this blank
Talk a
space to
technology
say
question.
that
Of course, my
Hamid,
Wi-Fi decides to. Can you hear me now?
Go ahead.
Yes. Okay, go ahead, Jack, with your answer.
I'm going to let Jean explain this.
Okay. I don't know if she's gonna.
Technology is a big. Am I back?
Yes.
you are.
You can hear me?
Yep.
Okay, good. Of course, you talk technology. My Wi-Fi drops my signal and I had to reboot myself. My apologies. So this is an area that we're really focusing on to help owners with. You know, technology and trying to find efficiencies is big. A lot of owners use all different systems. So you heard Shopbox today. There's some owners who use CoreBridge. There's some that use Trello. Some use Salesforce for CRM. Some use Pipedrive. You know, you as an owner have the luxury of choosing what works best for you. But we are working to make sure that those technology tools have integration capabilities. And there's a lot of enhancements that we're working at from a corporate team with our technology suppliers. So that's definitely a key area for us. We're going to move on to Kimberly in Kansas. Can you go off mute and ask your question, Kimberly?
Yes. So my question is, what is the biggest hurdle, or I wish I knew that you had the first year of starting business? And what is the one thing you would have done different?
Love this question. Very common one. Let's go to Frank Murch. If you're starting all over, what's the one thing you would have done differently?
I would have pushed the website much harder in the first year. There's a company called Mark My Words Media that seems to be very effective. I did not use them, probably should have, but I think if I had put a lot more into the website right up front, that I would have done better in the first year.
Thank you, Frank. Hamid, if you could go back to your first year, what would you have done differently?
I think I would have done a better job of locating my business in the place where I could ultimately buy, so that I wouldn't have to make a big change after all. But that's just, you know, that's hindsight. I don't think that is relevant for every market.
Perfect, thank you. Jim, if you were to start all over, what would you do differently in your first year?
Yeah, much like Frank, I would have put a lot more emphasis on our website. I didn't, and I should have. That's probably been our biggest hindrance. Matter of fact, we're in the process of redoing our website as we speak now.
Absolutely. Jack, do you have any comments on that question? What would you have done differently?
You know, in the beginning, you've got to be a generalist taking care of a little bit of everything because you're trying to keep the staff busy and you're trying to figure out what you like and are good at. I think most Signworld owners, if they can start to hone in a little bit sooner on those special areas that they are more effective, are more profitable, and market themselves towards those niches sooner, is a better long-term play than trying to be the generalist forever.
Perfect, thank you. Richard from Peachtree City, can you go off mute and ask your question?
Can you hear me now?
Sure can.
It's a three-part question. I'll start with, I'd like a brief breakdown of hourly versus salary employees, whether startup or years of success. Do you have any incentives and bonuses for employees, whether they're in attendance-based, performance-based, productivity-based, or any profit sharing? And for your long-term employees, why do they want to come to work every day?
It's a loaded question. We might not have time for all of it, but we'll give it a shot. So Jim, do you offer benefits to your employees? Are they hourly versus salary? Let's start with those two.
Sure. I have four of us. Two of us are salary, myself and my son, who's my VP of sales. The other two hires are hourly. As far as benefits, I do not offer any benefits currently. Bonuses, everybody is able to sell, and I pay commissions on their sales. That's the only bonus situation I have.
It's a good one. Frank, how about you? Hourly versus salary, benefits and bonuses.
Everyone here currently is hourly. I do have a commission plan. It's 5% over the salary, and our I don't know why I'm having a problem with salary versus hourly. They're all hourly. They can get 5% on specific accounts. If they bring in an account that I wasn't going to get anyway, I'll give them 5% on that. On benefits, I do offer healthcare, paid holidays, and I do bonuses at my discretion. It's not a formula that is formalized.
Perfect. Thank you. Yep. It's very good. Hamid, hourly versus salary, benefits and bonuses.
So I have 2 employees, myself and my sign maker, who are on salary. And both of us have a bonus plan that we give out every 6 months. And we have agreed plan for that. But we're kind of, it's not completely settled. So we're managing that. And then the other 2 employees are hourly. We give vacation time and family time paid to all employees. We don't have any health care, and we are looking to do something for the hourly employees besides overtime pay. They do get overtime pay, but that's kind of the status at the moment.
Very good. Thank you. We will go to one last question from Padma in Los Angeles, California. Go ahead and go off mute and ask your question. Padma, do you have a question? Okay, well, assume she doesn't. It's the bottom left of your screen, Padma, if you're trying to find the mute button. All right, very good. Well, I know we're at the top of the hour. We did not get through everybody for our questions, but we do appreciate the participation of everyone. Most importantly, we appreciate the owners taking time out of your busy days to participate in our session today. So to our panel of owners, a heartwarm thank you very much for your time. To our attendees, we appreciate your interest in Signworld, and we look forward to future conversations to see if this is the right fit for this next chapter in your life. And with that, we wish everyone a great day. Thank you for attending today.